The tornado tore my house apart in 30 seconds, but it took my own son less than 5 minutes to tear my heart out. Everything I ever owned was gone. Just like that. 66 years of living, of loving, of building a life in that little blue house in Peoria, and it was all chewed up and spit out by the wind. I remember standing there in the mud, the rain soaking through my nightgown, looking at a pile of splintered wood that used to be my living room. My wedding photo was gone. The height chart on the doorframe where I measured my boy Tyler every year was gone. The quilt my mama made me was gone. The only thing I had left was the Buick parked in the driveway, which miraculously hadn't been touched, and the clothes on my back. I did not cry right then. I think I was too shocked to cry. I just shivered and stared at the ruin until the sirens wailed closer, and the flashing lights cut through the gray darkness. The next 2 days were a blur of Red Cross blankets and bad coffee in a high school gym. I felt like a ghost. People were talking to me, asking about insurance, asking about next of kin, but I could barely hear them. I was numb. The insurance agent, a tired-looking man with coffee stains on his shirt, told me it was going to take months to sort out the claim because the destruction was so widespread. He said I should find somewhere else to stay for a while. That was when I thought of Tyler. My boy. My only child. I had not seen him in almost a year, not since he got that big promotion in Chicago and moved into that fancy suburb with his wife, Jessica. We talked on the phone sometimes, but it was always short. He was always busy. He was always hustling. But this was an emergency. This was his mama. I figured it would be a no-brainer. I figured I would go stay in their guest room for a few weeks, help with the cooking, maybe finally bond with Jessica and get back on my feet. I packed what little I had salvaged into the trunk of the Buick. It was not much. Just a suitcase of donated clothes, a few toiletries, and a plastic bag with some important papers I managed to dig out of the debris. The drive to Chicago took 3 hours, but it felt like 3 days. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel the whole time. I was scared about the future, sure, but I had this warm little light in my chest thinking about seeing Tyler. I thought about how he used to run into my arms when he was little, burying his face in my apron. I thought about how I worked double shifts at the diner for 20 years after his daddy passed, just so Tyler could go to that expensive college. I paid for his books. I paid for his dorm. I drained my savings so he could start life without debt. I did it because that is what mamas do. We give until we are empty. I pulled up to his house around dinner time. It was a massive place, all brick and stone with a 3-car garage and a lawn so green it looked fake. I felt a little small pulling my dented 20-year-old Buick into their driveway next to their shiny black SUVs. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. I tried to smooth down my hair and wipe the road dust off my pants. I wanted to look presentable. When the door opened, it was Jessica. She was wearing white yoga pants and holding a glass of wine. She looked at me like I was a solicitor trying to sell her solar panels. "Oh," she said. "It is you." "Hello, Jessica," I said, trying to smile. "Is Tyler home?" She did not invite me in. She just turned her head and yelled back into the house. "Ty, your mother is here." A minute later, Tyler appeared. He looked good. He was wearing a sharp suit, no tie, looking every bit the successful man I raised him to be. But his eyes were cold. There was no hug. There was no smile. He just stood there in the doorway, blocking the view of the warm, golden hallway behind him.
"Mom," he said.
"What are you doing here? You did not call." I swallowed hard. I did not want to cry in front of them. "Tyler," I said, my voice trembling a little. "The tornado. It took the house. It is all gone, honey. Everything." He blinked. "I saw it on the news. I wondered if it hit near you." "It hit right on top of me," I said. "I have got nowhere to go, Ty. The insurance is going to take months. I just need a place to crash for a little while until I can figure things out."
"Just a few weeks."
Tyler looked at Jessica. Jessica took a sip of her wine and looked at her manicured nails. The silence stretched out between us, heavy and suffocating. "Mom," Tyler said finally, looking back at me. "Look, this is really not a good time." My heart skipped a beat. "What?" "We have a lot going on right now," he said, shifting his weight. "Jessica is redoing the guest room, so it is full of construction stuff. And we have investors coming in and out for the next month. It is just chaotic. We really cannot have house guests. I felt like he had slapped me across the face. I ain't a house guest, Tyler, I whispered. I am your mother. I am homeless. I know, and that sucks, he said, actually using the word sucks like it was a minor inconvenience, like I had a flat tire. But you know how stressed I get when my routine is thrown off.
We just do not have the space for you right now.
I looked at the massive house behind him. It had to be 5,000 square feet. They did not have space? Jessica chimed in then, her voice sickly sweet but sharp as a razor. There is a Motel 6 down by the highway, Martha. It is really affordable. Maybe you can stay there for a night or two. I looked at my son. I looked deep into his eyes, searching for the little boy who used to cry when I stubbed my toe. I searched for the young man who swore he would take care of me when he got rich. I saw nothing, just a stranger protecting his comfort.
You are serious, I said.
You are turning me away? Mom, do not make a scene, Tyler said, looking around to see if the neighbors were watching.
Just go to the motel.
I will Venmo you a couple $100, okay? He reached into his pocket for his phone, but I held up my hand. My pride was the only thing I had left, and I was not going to let him buy it for $200.
Keep your money, I said.
My voice was quiet, but it was steady. You keep your money, Tyler. I hope it keeps you warm at night. I turned around and walked back to my car. I did not look back. I heard the heavy front door click shut behind me, the sound of a vault locking. I sat in the driver's seat of my Buick and just gripped the wheel. I did not start the car. I just sat there and let the reality wash over me. I was 66 years old. I had arthritis in my knees and high blood pressure. I had no home, and the person I loved most in the world just threw me out like trash. That first night, I did not go to the Motel 6. I was too ashamed. I drove to a 24-hour Walmart supercenter about 10 miles away. I parked way out in the back, under a flickering street lamp. I reclined the seat as far as it would go, locked the doors, and pulled a scratchy wool blanket over myself. It is hard to explain what it feels like to sleep in a car when you have had a bed your whole life. It ain't just the discomfort. It is the vulnerability. You feel like a sitting duck. Every pair of headlights that sweeps across the window makes your heart hammer. Is it the police? Is it a robber? Is it a bunch of kids looking for trouble? I barely slept an hour. My back screamed at me. It was October in Illinois, and the temperature dropped into the 40s. The cold seeped through the glass and settled into my bones. I woke up stiff, hungry, and needing to use a bathroom. I walked into the Walmart at 6 in the morning to use the restroom and brush my teeth at the sink. I saw a young mother washing her kid's face in there, and she gave me a look. It was a look of pity mixed with disgust. She pulled her kid a little closer. That hurt worse than the cold. I was a respectable woman. I was a churchgoer. I volunteered at the library. Now I was just a bum washing up in a public toilet. That became my life for the next 3 weeks. I rotated parking lots, so I would not get noticed. Hospital parking lots are good because people stay there all night. Hotel parking lots are risky because security checks them. Truck stops are loud, but nobody bothers you. I learned to eat cheap. Peanut butter and crackers. Apples. Canned tuna. I did not have a way to cook, so everything was cold. I watched my bank account on my phone, watching the little number get smaller and smaller. I had to save gas, so I stopped running the heater at night. I just piled on every piece of clothing I owned. The worst part was the loneliness. When you are homeless, you become invisible. People look right through you. I spent my days sitting in the public library, pretending to read just to stay warm and charge my phone. I saw people I knew from my old life on Facebook posting pictures of their dinners and their grandkids. I wanted to reach out, but the shame locked my throat shut. How could I tell anyone that my own son rejected me? Admitting that felt like admitting I had failed as a mother.
It was my secret shame.
By the 4th week, I was breaking down. My legs were swollen from sleeping sitting up. I had a cough that rattled deep in my chest and would not go away. I was running out of money for gas. I was dirty. I felt less human every day. One rainy Tuesday, a security guard knocked on my window at a strip mall. Ma'am, you cannot sleep here, he said. He wasn't mean, just tired. But you got to move along. Store owners are complaining. I nodded, blinking back tears.
I am sorry, I said.
I am leaving. I started the car, but the engine sputtered. It made a horrible grinding noise and died. I tried again. Nothing. Just a click. Please, I whispered. Please, not this. I tried again. Silence. The security guard sighed and walked away to call a tow truck. I knew what that meant. If they towed the car, I lost my shelter. I lost my clothes. I lost everything. I did not have the money to get it out of impound. I sat there in the rain, the windows fogging up, and I finally broke. I put my head on the steering wheel and sobbed until my ribs ached. I cried for my house. I cried for my husband. I cried for the cruel stranger my son had become. I cried because I was going to die out here on the street and nobody was going to care. I pulled my phone out. I had 4% battery left. I scrolled through my contacts. Who could I call? The ladies from church? No, I could not bear their pity. My cousins in Florida? They did not have any money either. Then my fingers stopped on a name. Silas. Silas Moore. I had not spoken to him in 40 years. We were high school sweethearts. We were going to get married right after graduation. He was the captain of the football team, and I was the head cheerleader. It was that classic American love story. But then life happened. My parents got sick, and I had to stay behind. He went off to New York to build a business. We tried the long-distance thing, but we were just kids. We drifted apart. I met my husband, he met someone else. But we never had a bad breakup. It just faded. I kept his number because a friend gave it to me 5 years ago when Silas moved back to Chicago. He had become some big-shot real estate developer. Wealthy. Powerful. I never called him. I was married, and then I was widowed, and it just felt wrong. What would I say?
But now?
Now I had nothing to lose. I stared at the name. My thumb hovered over the call button. He probably would not even answer. He probably changed his number. He probably would not remember me. The security guard was walking back toward me, looking impatient. I pressed the button. It rang.
Once. Twice. 3 times.
I was about to hang up, feeling foolish, when a voice answered. It was deep, gravelly, and commanding. This is Silas.
My throat went dry.
I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Hello? The voice said. Who is this? Silas, I croaked. It came out like a whisper. It is Martha. Martha Evans. Well, Martha Miller now. There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. I squeezed my eyes shut. This was a mistake. He was going to hang up. Martha? He said. His tone changed completely. It went from business cold to something soft. Something shocked. Marty? Is that you? Nobody had called me Marty in 40 years. Tears welled up in my eyes again. Yeah, Silas. It is me. My God, he said. I have not heard your voice in decades. How are you? Where are you? I tried to put on a brave face. I tried to use my polite voice. Oh, I am fine, just... But then I looked at the rain sliding down the windshield. I looked at the security guard talking on his radio. I looked at my swollen hands. I could not lie. I did not have the energy to lie anymore. Silas, I sobbed, the dam breaking. I ain't good. I am really not good. What is wrong? His voice sharpened. He sounded alert now. Intense. I lost my house, Silas. The tornado took it. And I am in Chicago. My car broke down in a parking lot and they are fixin' to tow it and I have got nowhere to go. I am sleeping in my car, Silas. I am so scared. There was a pause. I heard the sound of a chair scraping back, like he stood up fast. Where are you? He demanded.
Give me the address. Right now.
I told him the name of the strip mall.
Do not move, he said.
Do not let them tow that car. Hand the phone to the security guard. What? Give the phone to the guard, Martha.
Now.
I rolled down the window with a shaking hand and beckoned the guard over. He looked annoyed, but he took the phone. I watched the guard's face. He put the phone to his ear. Yeah, he said aggressively. Then his face went pale. His eyes got wide. He stood up straighter. Yes, sir.
No, sir.
I did not know, sir. Yes. Absolutely. I will stay right here with her. Yes, sir. He handed the phone back to me like it was made of gold. He is coming, the guard said, his voice respectful now. He said he is 20 minutes away. He said I am to make sure nobody touches you or this car until he gets here. Thank you, I whispered. Silas was still on the line. Martha? You there? I am here, Silas. I am coming to get you, he said. His voice was firm, steady, like a rock in a storm. You just hang tight. I am driving myself. I am coming. I sat there clutching the phone until the battery died. For the first time in a month, my heart wasn't racing with fear. It was racing with something else.
Hope.
And maybe a little bit of memory. 20 minutes later, a silver Rolls Royce swept into the parking lot. It looked like a spaceship in the grim, gray rain. It pulled up right next to my dead Buick. The driver door opened, and a man stepped out. He was older now, his hair silver and his face lined, but he was still handsome. He was wearing a dark trench coat and holding a large umbrella. He didn't look at the rain. He didn't look at the grime on my car. He looked straight at me. He walked around to my door and opened it. I must have looked a sight. Greasy hair, wearing 3 sweaters, dark circles under my eyes, smelling like stale car air. I felt a wave of humiliation. I tried to shrink back into the seat. Silas, do not look at me, I said, covering my face. I looked terrible. Silas Moore didn't care. He handed the umbrella to the guard, reached into the car, and scooped me up into his arms like I weighed nothing. He held me tight against his expensive coat, not caring about the dirt. I got you, Marty, he whispered into my hair. I got you.
You are safe now.
He carried me to the passenger seat of the Rolls Royce. The inside smelled like leather and expensive cologne. It was warm. He went back, grabbed my suitcase from the trunk of my car, threw it in his back seat, and then tossed a set of keys to the security guard. Have it towed to a mechanic, Silas told the guard. Fix everything. Send the bill to my office. He got in the driver's seat and looked at me. His eyes were blue, just as bright as I remembered, but they were filled with a pain that matched mine. He reached out and gently touched my cheek with his warm hand. Who did this to you? He asked. His voice was low, dangerous. Who let you live like this? I couldn't tell him yet. I couldn't say it was my own blood. So I just shook my head and leaned into his hand. Just drive, Silas.
Please.
We're going home, he said. He put the car in gear, and we glided out of that parking lot, leaving the misery behind us. As we emerged onto the highway, heading toward the city skyline that glowed in the distance, I realized something. I had lost my house. I had lost my family. But sitting next to the man I loved 40 years ago, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I hadn't lost everything. Silas lived in a penthouse overlooking the lake. It was nothing like Tyler's sterile, cold mansion. This place was warm. It was full of books, soft rugs, and art. It felt like a home. He didn't ask me a million questions that first night. He knew what I needed. He showed me to a guest suite that was bigger than my entire old house. It had a bathroom with a soaking tub and heated floors. Take your time, he said, standing at the door. There are fresh towels. I will have some food ready when you come out. I stood under the hot shower for an hour. I scrubbed the parking lot off my skin. I washed the smell of the car out of my hair. I watched the gray water swirl down the drain, taking the shame with it. When I finally got out and wrapped myself in a fluffy white robe, I looked in the mirror. I looked old. I looked tired. But I looked clean. When I walked out into the living room, Silas had a fire crackling in the fireplace. There was a bowl of homemade soup and crusty bread on the table. He was sitting on the couch, pouring 2 cups of tea. He stood up when I entered. You look beautiful, Marty, he said. And he wasn't lying. I could tell. We sat and ate. I told him about the tornado. I told him about the insurance. And finally, after a glass of wine loosened the knot in my chest, I told him about Tyler. I told him how I drove there, how Jessica looked at me, how Tyler stood in the doorway and told me I would mess up his routine, How he offered me money to go to a motel. As I spoke, Silas's face grew dark. His jaw clenched tight. He didn't say a word, but I saw the fury building in his eyes. It was a cold, calculated anger. "He is your only son?" Silas asked quietly.
Yes.
"And he left you to sleep in a parking lot in November?"
Yes.
Silas set his glass down. He took a deep breath. "He made a mistake," Silas said. "A very big mistake." "What do you mean?" Silas looked at me, and his expression softened. "You do not worry about him right now. You are staying here. As long as you want. Forever if you want. I've been alone in this big place for 10 years since my wife passed. It has been too quiet. Having you here, it feels right." "It feels right to me too," I admitted.
And it did.
It wasn't just gratitude. It was that old spark. It had been buried under 40 years of life, but it was still there, glowing like an ember. Over the next few weeks, Silas treated me like a queen. But more than that, he treated me like a partner. We talked for hours. We laughed. We went for walks by the lake. He bought me new clothes, not flashy stuff, but elegant, warm clothes that made me feel dignified. I started to heal. The nightmares about the tornado stopped. The cough went away. I put a little weight back on. But the past has a way of catching up with you. One evening, about a month after Silas took me in, we were having dinner at a high-end steakhouse downtown. Silas wanted to celebrate. He wouldn't say what for, just that he had good news. We were laughing at a story about our high school prom when I froze. Walking through the front door of the restaurant was Tyler and Jessica. They were with another couple, looking loud and important. Tyler was laughing, slapping the other man on the back. Jessica was wearing a fur coat. My blood ran cold. I ducked my head. "Silas," I whispered. "It is them." Silas didn't turn around. He just reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was iron. "Stay calm, Marty," he said. "You are with me." Tyler spotted us. I saw his eyes widen. He stopped dead in his tracks. He looked at me, clean, wearing a silk blouse, getting my hand held by one of the most powerful men in Chicago. He looked confused. Then he looked at Silas. He recognized him. Everyone in Chicago business circles knew Silas Moore. Tyler whispered something to Jessica. Her jaw dropped. They walked over to our table. I wanted to disappear, but Silas squeezed my hand. "Mom?" Tyler said. He sounded stunned. I looked up. I didn't smile. "Hello, Tyler. What are you doing here?" He looked at Silas, then back at me. "You know Silas Moore?" Silas stood up. He was 3 inches taller than Tyler and possessed a natural authority that my son could never buy. "The question is not what she is doing here," Silas said, his voice smooth and deadly. "The question is, why do you have the audacity to speak to her?" Tyler stammered. She is my mother." "Is she?" Silas asked. "Because from what Martha told me, you ceased being her son the night you turned her away from your door to sleep in the street. People in the restaurant were starting to look." Tyler's face went bright red. "Look, Mr. Moore," Tyler said, trying to regain composure. "It was a misunderstanding. We didn't know she had nowhere to go. We offered her money for a hotel. You offered her humiliation," Silas cut in. "You traded your mother's dignity for your own convenience. And now you see her sitting here, safe and loved, and you are confused. You are wondering how the woman you threw away ended up at the best table in the city." Jessica stepped forward, trying to smile. "Oh, surely we can all sit down and discuss this. Martha, we have been so worried about you. We called the shelter." "Liar," I said. It was the first time I spoke up. I stood up to face them. "You never called anyone. You never checked. You hoped I would just disappear, so you wouldn't have to feel guilty." "Mom, please," Tyler said, sweating now.
"No," I said.
"I am done, Tyler. I spent my life raising you to be a good man. I failed. That is on me. But I am not your burden anymore." Silas put his arm around my waist. He looked at Tyler with eyes like ice. "I suggest you leave," Silas said, "before I make a phone call that ruins your little investment firm. I know your partners. I know your lenders.
Do not test me."
Tyler looked at Silas. He knew Silas wasn't bluffing. He looked at me one last time, seeing a strength he didn't know I had. He opened his mouth to say something but closed it. He knew he had lost. "Come on, Ty," Jessica whispered, tugging his arm. They turned and walked out of the restaurant. They didn't look back. I sat down, my legs trembling. Silas sat next to me and wrapped both his hands around mine. "You did good, Marty," he said softly. I looked at him. I felt a weight lift off my chest, a weight I had been carrying for years. "I am free, Silas," I said. "I am finally free." Silas smiled, and for the first time, he looked nervous. "Well, since you are free," he said, reaching into his pocket, "that brings me to the news I wanted to tell you." He pulled out a small velvet box.
"It ain't a ring, not yet," he said.
"It is a key." I opened the box. Inside was a shiny brass key. "To the penthouse?" I asked.
"No," he said. "To the house next door to it."
"I bought it this morning. But I am hoping you will not want to use it. I am hoping you will want to stay in the penthouse. With me.
Permanently."
I looked at the key. Then I looked at the man who had saved my life. The man who gave me back my dignity. The man who loved me when I had nothing. I took the key out of the box and placed it on the table. "I do not need a house, Silas," I said, leaning in to kiss him. "I am already home." That night changed everything. When I walked out of that steakhouse, holding Silas's hand, I left the ghost of my old life behind at table 4. I stopped being the victim. I stopped being the poor widow who slept in a Buick. I was Martha Evans again, or, at least, I was finding out who she was supposed to be. The winter in Chicago that year was brutal. The wind howled off Lake Michigan, freezing the city solid. But inside the penthouse, it was always summer. Silas and I fell into a rhythm that felt like we had been married for 50 years. We read the paper together in the mornings. He went to his office, and I started taking classes at the community college. Art history. I always wanted to learn about art. But while my life was blooming, Tyler's was withering. Silas never explicitly told me he was going after Tyler. He was too classy for that. But Chicago is a small town when you are at the top. People talk. Rumors spread like wildfire. And the rumor was that Tyler Miller, the rising star of the investment world, had let his own mother freeze in a parking lot while he drank wine in his mansion. In the world of high finance, trust is the only currency that matters. If a man cannot be trusted to care for his own flesh and blood, how can he be trusted with millions of dollars of other people's money? It started slowly. Silas would come home and tell me that Tyler lost a major contract. Then, a few weeks later, he mentioned that 2 of Tyler's biggest partners had pulled out. I did not feel joy hearing this. A mother never wants to see her child suffer, no matter what they did. But I did not feel the urge to run and save him, either. I had learned the hard way that saving people who do not want to be saved only drowns you both. By February, the calls started coming. First, it was Jessica. She called my old cell number, which I kept just in case. "Martha," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I sat in Silas's leather armchair, watching the snow fall outside. "Hello, Jessica. You have to tell Silas to stop," she said. She sounded frantic. "He is blackballing Tyler. Nobody will touch us. The bank is calling in the loan on the house. We are going to lose everything." I took a sip of my tea. "Silas ain't doing anything, Jessica. He is just letting the truth do the work. You have to help us." She screamed. "You are his mother." "I was his mother when I stood on your porch in the rain," I said calmly. "I was his mother when you told me to go to a Motel 6. I did not hear you calling me family then." She hung up on me. 2 weeks later, the news hit the papers. Tyler's firm had filed for bankruptcy. It was a scandal. There were allegations of mismanagement, of cutting corners. It turns out, when you are desperate for money because your reputation is tanking, you make bad decisions. Then came the knock on the door. It was a Tuesday evening in March. The ice was finally starting to melt. Silas and I were watching a movie when the doorman called up. "Mr. Tyler Miller is here to see you, sir," the doorman said. Silas looked at me. He held the remote in his hand. "It is up to you, Marty. You say the word, and I tell them to escort him off the property. You never have to see his face again. I thought about it. I thought about the pain. I thought about the cold nights in the Walmart parking lot. But I also thought about the little boy I used to rock to sleep.
Let him up, I said.
When Tyler walked into the penthouse, I barely recognized him. He had lost 20 pounds. His suit was wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. And he was alone. Where is Jessica? I asked. Tyler let out a harsh, bitter laugh. She left. As soon as the foreclosure notice hit the house, she packed her bags and went back to her parents in Arizona. Said she didn't sign up for poverty. I nodded. I wasn't surprised. Money attracts a certain kind of people, and lack of money reveals who they really are. Tyler looked around the penthouse. He looked at the expensive art, the view of the city lights, the fire in the hearth. Then he looked at Silas, who was standing protectively behind my chair. Finally, he looked at me. He crumbled. He fell to his knees on the Persian rug and buried his face in his hands.
He started to sob.
It wasn't the fake crying of a child trying to get out of trouble. It was the deep, guttural sound of a man who has lost his soul. I am sorry, Mom, he choked out. I am so sorry. I was so scared of losing my status. I was so scared of Jessica leaving me. I was weak. I was a coward. He looked up, his eyes red and swollen. I lost everything, Mom. The house is gone. The cars are gone. My friends won't return my calls. I am sleeping on a buddy's couch. I have nothing. Silas moved to step forward, maybe to kick him out, but I held up a hand. I stood up and walked over to my son. I looked down at him. I remembered looking down at him when he was a baby in his crib, promising to protect him from the world. But I realized now that the only person who could protect Tyler was Tyler. Get up, I said softly. He stood up, wiping his nose with his sleeve. I forgive you, Tyler, I said. He let out a breath, looking hopeful. Really? So, can you help me? Can you talk to Silas? Maybe he can give me a job? Or a loan? Just to get me back on my feet? I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Even now, after everything, he was still looking for a handout. He still didn't get it. I shook my head, sad ly. I forgive you for my own peace, Tyler. Not for your benefit. I forgive you because carrying around hate is too heavy for a woman my age. But forgiveness ain't the same thing as access. What do you mean? He asked, his voice shaking. I mean, I am not going to fix this for you, I said. You made your bed. Now you have to sleep in it. Just like I had to sleep in my car. But Mom. No, I said firmly. You are a grown man. You have a degree. You have your health. You go out there and you get a job. You work at a diner if you have to. You scrub floors. You learn what it means to earn $1 without stepping on people to get it. You learn what it feels like to be invisible. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a single $20 bill. Here, I said, pressing it into his hand. Go get yourself a hot meal. He stared at the money. It was exactly what he had tried to Venmo me that night on his porch. The irony hit him like a truck. He closed his fist around the bill and nodded slowly. The hope faded from his eyes, replaced by a grim realization. He was on his own. Goodbye, Tyler, I said. He turned and walked to the elevator. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. The doors slid shut, and he was gone. Silas walked over and wrapped his arms around me from behind. You okay? He asked. I leaned back into his chest. Yeah, I think I finally am. The spring came early that year. The city turned green, and the tulips bloomed along the magnificent mile. Silas and I got married in June. We didn't do a big fancy thing. We just went to the courthouse, just the two of us, and then had a picnic by the lake. I wore a simple cream-colored dress, and Silas wore a blue suit that matched his eyes. We bought a house. Not the penthouse, and not a mansion. We bought a nice, sturdy brick house in a quiet neighborhood with a big garden. Silas said he wanted to plant tomatoes. I wanted a porch swing. We spent our days volunteering. We started a foundation for homeless women. We went to the shelters, the same ones I was too scared to go to, and we handed out blankets, food, and legal advice. I told my story. I told them about the car. I told them about the shame. I told them that hitting rock bottom is just the place where you build the foundation for the rest of your life. One afternoon, about a year after the wedding, I was in the garden pruning the roses. Silas was inside making lemonade. A small car pulled up to the curb. It was a beat-up Honda, rusty and old. A man got out. He was wearing a mechanic's uniform, his hands stained with grease. He looked tired, but he looked strong. He looked real. It was Tyler. I stood up, wiping the dirt from my gloves. He didn't come to the gate. He just stood by his car. He looked at the house.
He looked at me.
He didn't ask to come in. He didn't ask for money. He just waved. A small, tentative wave. I looked at him. I saw the grease under his fingernails. I saw the humility in his posture. He was working. He was rebuilding. He was becoming a man. I smiled. A genuine smile. And I waved back. He got back in his car and drove away. Silas came out onto the porch with 2 glasses of lemonade.
Who was that?
He asked. Just an old friend, I said. Silas sat down on the swing and patted the spot next to him. I sat down and rested my head on his shoulder. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The wind chime on the porch sang a gentle song. I thought about the tornado. I thought about the ruin. I thought about how I lost every single thing I owned. But as I sat there, holding the hand of the love of my life, listening to the birds sing in my own garden, I realized something. The tornado took my house, but it gave me my home. And this time, the foundation was built on something stronger than wood and brick. It was built on truth. It was built on resilience. And most of all, it was built on love. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind. It wasn't scary anymore. It was just the sound of the world turning, bringing a new day. And I was ready for it.